if you start with that mindset of just controlling what you can control and blocking out the rest of that noise and just attacking everything with relentless enthusiasm, you're always going to see the glass half full. You're always going to have a little bit of a clarity.
Todd Simon's the head coach of the men's basketball program at Southern Utah. He was named the Big Sky Conference Coach of the Year in 2020 and led the Thunderbirds to their first ever Big Sky championship in the 2020-2021 season, finishing their regular season with an .864 winning percentage. His coaching philosophy revolves around the idea of really understanding yourself and who you are as a person. Wanted to talk to Todd. We're in the middle of the March Madness chaos, and as a collegiate men's basketball coach at not just Southern Utah, but also UNLV, Findlay Prep, and Pepperdine, I want to talk to Coach Simon about not just what it means to be a coach, not just what it's like to coach a team through such chaos as what has been the last few years, but I want to talk to him a little bit about how he thinks about his coaching strategy and coaching philosophy. Here's Coach Todd Simon.
Coach, I think maybe to kick us off, it'd be great for you to share a little bit about your story, how you got from where you started to where you are today, and down coaching for conference championship.
Yeah. So originally from Michigan, grew up small blue collar town and proceeded from there. Went to Central Michigan University. Got a degree in management information systems, but and as well as sports studies, but sports was always where I wanted to be, and so kind of going from there, kind of moved out west to try to kind of spread my wings a little bit, to get outside my comfort zone, try to challenge some of the beliefs and dreams and all those types of things that we had at the time, and so going, and then kind of making my way from out there, kind of got into the basketball world, and combined with a few outside interests, but kind of settled into the basketball world and really focused on my coaching career and helping young men and kind of proceeding from that standpoint, and gradually kind of made my way up the business, and now as the head coach at Southern Utah University, we've kind of built a program here over the last 5 years, and now we've built it to a conference champion and get a chance to try to make the NCAA tournament. And so it's been a lot of great lessons along the way, a lot of great leaders that I've worked for that have kind of helped shape our philosophy.
What inspired you to become a basketball coach?
I knew from a pretty young age that this was something I wanted to do. I was, probably even 8 years old, just growing up watching the Bad Boy Pistons and all that stuff. But I was so intrigued by the Chuck Daly's, the Pat Rileys of the world, and kind of seeing how they were in those positions, and basketball is such a sport I just loved, and knew I didn't have much of a playing future long term, but this was something that I was just so in love with the coaching side of it, and so that was kind of the inspiration to kind of pursue the dream, and we kind of took it off from there.
I talked to a lot of talent managers, and these are folks that are running HR teams, and they're thinking about employee development, and they're thinking about how do you determine employee engagement is a big one right now. And I always think about the power of sports to connect with people and get the most out of people. I'm interested to hear, when you mentioned earlier your coaching philosophy. What does that look like? And I ask it from a question of so many leaders out there maybe are intimidated or struggle with formally defining a philosophy. But I'm sure that's something you probably think about a lot.
Yeah, that's something that I think you have to have a North Star. You have to be able to find your way home, especially in the chaotic world of managing people. And in our world is not only managing 18 and 22-year-olds, but you're also managing recruits, you're managing parents, you're managing a university system. I mean, there's all kinds of layers. And you know, for me, it was, you once you have that kind of defined, just a little bit of it is who are you as a person, for us, uh, a couple of our core tenants, just controlling your controllables, is something that we talk about all the time. Making the main thing. Relentless enthusiasm, is a term I use with our team all the time. And I think if you start with that mindset of just controlling what you can control, and blocking out the rest of that noise, and just attacking everything with relentless enthusiasm, you're always going to see the glass half full. You're always going to have a little bit of a clarity. And I think that's as important as anything, is just to have a peace of mind and a clarity of, what you're doing and what's important, and not getting flustered by things that don't have an impact, or shouldn't be of concern. And that's what we kind of try to instill in our teams. We're just going to control what we can control, play very hard. We're going to be as enthusiastic as you'll find. And then beyond that, it's getting the right people in the room is a huge part of what we do. We're looking for people with genuine, hearts. It's easy to say, but I think you can kind of find people that are willing to, maybe have a confidence about them, but also in terms of maybe a chip on their shoulder, or have gone. I think I really value guys that have been through some adversity, because they've been tested and they've come out the other side. And then the third prong is we need humble team players, guys that, players that can't laugh at themselves, are going to, there's a struggle there. And so those are kind of three qualities that kind of fit within our philosophy as well.
What's gotten tougher about your job? I guess we got to take COVID out of it for a second, but what's gotten tougher about coaching and developing? You said 18 to 22-year-olds. How has that changed?
Yeah, you're the noise. It's not a social media world. It's the world now. It is the world. You can't compartmentalize something that's so ingrained in who we are now. Everyone has a phone connected to them, and the connectivity of the world, from all kinds of layers, and family to friends to strangers, you name it. That connectivity is now part of, every generation that's on the earth now. So you have to manage the message. You have to continue to stay in close relationship, and so that the trust doesn't erode, because sometimes over connectivity can lead to maybe messages getting muddied or diluted. And so that relationship piece is almost gone full circle, to where you need to have relationships that don't exist just in a platform that's not face to face. You need to have that face to face relationship. And I think that's probably the biggest challenge now that in 2021.
Recruiting is obviously a big part of your job, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you enjoy it?
I do. I really do. I enjoy getting to know people. I enjoy conversations. I like to hear people's stories. So from that standpoint, I would say the essence of what we do and what I do is I enjoy seeing small fish become big fish, and so I like to see young men when they're still a small fish, and see that potential in them. So yeah, I do really love it. I love recruiting.
I want to talk to you about practice, if I could. No Iverson jokes needed for this part, but and I want to come at it from a perspective of thinking about companies who every day they have to consider how they get the most out of their people, how do they develop workers, mean, you every day have a scoreboard that you work towards. You have a very numbers driven universe you're in. How do you think about practice or program design in order to get you to the championship or the outcomes you're looking for? What goes into, like, if I decided to quit and try to take my shot at becoming a college basketball coach? I was a football player and I decided to pass on going down the coaching route. But if I decide I want to be a GA for you and I needed a whiteboard session on how do you build out a program with practice in mind, what comes to mind?
The essence of what we do and gets so lost. And it goes back to making the main thing. We're in a people development world. That's what we do. So if we get our students to be as close to their potential as they can, we're going to be good. That's the bottom line. Everyone's got good schemes. Everyone can do it, but I always say, like, from a practice standpoint, I would stream it online and invite anybody to practice, even our strongest competitor, because it's not what we do, it's how we do it. And then that consistency day in and day out. But in terms of us building a practice, we carve out, today is, since the start of practice, today will be practice number 82. And our first half an hour of practice has not changed. And we play for our championship season in 2 days. And yeah, we have a lot of stuff to cover, but that part's not going to change. They're going to work on their individual skill set because we're invested in making sure our players are as good as they possibly be. And so that first segment is going to be us work on the skills that they're going to need to keep fine-tuned for that happen in the randomness of the game. And then there's this strategy portion where you're talking about working on schemes offensively, defensively, and then special situations. We want our guys to be prepared, end of game situations. We probably do more situational work than anybody in the country, and I'm unapologetic to our guys. Our guys kind of roll their eyes, but at the end of the game situation, my goal is for our team to never need a timeout. I try to call the least amount of timeouts in the country. I always said if I was king for a day, coaches get one a game. Coach your team in practice, you don't need it. So that's kind of where our goals kind of lie, is to try to put these guys in a position where I'm not needed and this thing just runs on its own and they have the confidence to kind of do it on their own. And that's how we kind of try to design our practices. But within it all, we're trying to challenge the mindset of our guys. I think the game is as much mental and emotional as it is physical in some ways. So we're always trying to set up disadvantage is to certain teams or certain players, or we just trying to create the chaos or the intense situation to see how a response is going to be. And then that way, when the game comes, the guys are mentally tough to move on to the next play and do the next thing right.
On the mentally tough thing, I'd imagine that the young men that you sign that come to Southern Utah, a lot of the stories you're probably asking in the recruiting process is understanding where they come from. How is parenting? We don't need to beat up on different generations, but I guess how has the journeys of some of the young people you see been impacted by parents? If you were talking to me as a father or parents out there that are trying to raise young men and women, what are the things that you see that maybe we need to do better at?
Yeah, I think in some situations, every generation wants to better their lives for their kids and what they had, and some of us, like myself, had a great growing up, but there was a hunger, I think sometimes there was going to be a lot of trial and error, a lot of failure, a lot of wants and desires that were going to go unfilled based on the childhood that we had, because it wasn't like we just had unlimited resources, those types of things. And so as a parent, it's a fine line, between giving your kids everything you ever wanted when you were a kid and providing for them, but then also trying to create environment where they're hungry and driven. I knew I wasn't going to get my college paid for, so I had to do everything in my power to make sure that I got a full scholarship and had it paid for because it was something I wanted to do. And and that's, so I think that just you see a lot of parents that love and care for their kids and want a better life for them. And it's really easy to make children the focal point, of our lives as parents. And sometimes it's not always the best course of action. Sometimes they need to see their parents have goals and dreams and achieve those and have that model as well. So it's a fine line. It's a fine line, and that's what we're always balancing.
Coach, I got one final question. We talked a lot about player development in your program, but I want you to share some maybe points of view on developing coaches, because you have a staff that you must think about every day, how you develop them as again, powerful assistants to your program to get the most out of your people. What is your same philosophy, but for developing coaches?
Yeah, the first and foremost, you lead by example. I think they have to see how you handle situations and learn and grow from that. That's how I learned and grew. I worked for some great leaders, and in watching them handle adverse situations, there's no playbook and for handling adversity, whether in business or in coaching. You've got to have your core values. You've got to understand who you are, how you like to be treated, and then apply that. And so, for us, a lot of conversations, one-on-ones, try to empower, say, hey, this is what we want, but then trust people to kind of do their job, and say, here's the result we want. Let's think of what the best practice to try to get there. And then really promote the consistency. I think that's as big a thing nowadays as you can find, is consistency in emotions, consistency in performance. But I think if you get a workplace where people want to work, want to be enthusiastic, I think performance takes off from there.
Coach, thank you for your time, and good luck 2 days from now.
I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Coach said a bunch of things I thought really relevant and really interesting for the moment. He said, we're in a people development world. He said, I think if you get a workplace where people want to be, performance can take off from there. That probably rings true and top of mind for many folks out there right now as we think about back to work, we think about hybrid work, we think about remote work, we think about creating a workplace where people aren't just connected, but also look forward to it. But one of the most important takeaways I had was his perspective on environment. He said there's a fine line between giving your kids everything you wanted for yourself when you were a kid, but also creating an environment where they're driven and hungry. Motivation, inspiration, these are things that great coaches traffic in and understand the mechanics of and how to utilize them the right way to get their people not just to the goal of the team, but to their own individual goals. So thanks to Coach Todd Simon for joining us for this episode. Now don't forget to subscribe to Bring It In so you never miss an episode. We've got some awesome guests lined up that you're not going to want to miss. Now, back to work.